Jason Fitz, ESPN, First Take, Your Take. Going to give us his take in just a second here as we'll bring him into the conversation and get you ready for a Wednesday edition of the Sports Bash. Don't forget, coming up tonight at 5 o'clock, the MGPT Top 5 at 5. Today, our Top 5 celebrity encounters, the 5 most famous people we've ever met. I met Jason Fitz. I don't think he made my top 5, but he joins me now on the Boardwalk Honda hotline. Jason, what's going on, man?
I'm living the dream. I don't think I'd make anybody's top 5, but that's a heck of a question. I do like that.
Yes, our top. You would have enjoyed our top 5, and I'm interested to get. I don't know if you could do it off the top of your head, but on Mondays, our top 5 at 5 was the 5 best concerts we've ever been to. Now, you've probably been to a wide variety of concerts. I don't know that you have those bang, 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 but we had some great feedback on that from our listeners who had been to some really cool shows.
I mean, I think my first concert will always stand out to me. That was Bon Jovi. I just remember being a little kid, and Bon Jovi Skid Row was my first concert. And the two things that will always stick in my head was watching Sebastian Bach come out, the lead singer of Skid Row. And we were in Scarborough, Maine, and he said, "Hello, Seattle, Washington," or wherever the beep we are. And the crowd just started booing them mercilessly because they didn't know what city they were in. And so that always stuck in my head as a fear when I was touring. And then I remember sitting there, this little violin kid playing classical music, and I watched Richie Sambora, explode up from underneath the stage and land on the stage and smoke going everywhere. I just watched that, and I was like, man, that is way cooler than playing Mozart. Like, I'm making some changes. So that one will always stand out to me. And then I think another just a cool, I don't know if it counts because it was sort of a hybrid, but we took part in a Grammy show years ago that was honoring Lionel Richie, and it was so cool because you had all these Dave Grohl standing next to Chris Stapleton, standing next to Little Big Town, and so anytime I get those sort of combo moments, they stand out to me. Also, little love to the boy bands. They put on, Backstreet Boys put on a better show than people think. I'm just saying. Pretty high. Pretty good.
Yeah. Now my number one was Radiohead at the Beacon Theater. I was in the Beacon Theater. They had those MTV $2 bill y'all shows. See, I too, like you, Jay, in a former life, I did rock radio and I worked for the Howard Stern station in town. So I was getting to go to all these shows. I got to go see Radiohead at the Beacon Theater in New York. It was awesome. But my first show made the list. Everybody's first show seemed to make the list. Mine was STP at the Mann Music Center in Philly, which is kind of no longer even used anymore. But I'm a kid of the 90s, so I saw all these little grunge acts in crazy little places. So I had some interesting ones, but we had some great ones. But I went and saw Christina Aguilera with my girlfriend last year in Atlantic City, and I got to say, that Christina Aguilera, she puts on a heck of a show.
Yeah, oh man, she sings her tail off, and there's this whole era of that era of pop, and it depends on what you love in a show, right? Because you mentioned STP, you're talking about just a cool moment, a cool voice and all that stuff. When you talk about some of these pop acts, it's the the spectacle of it, that. What makes Bruno Mars great now as a touring act is that he's a combo of the two, but rarely do you see somebody put on the sort of production elements that the Christina Aguileras and Backstreets and New Kids and all those acts put into their shows, because frankly they have to, and it makes it fun to watch.
Yeah, I also will say I saw Mariah Carey with my girlfriend too, and that was also a really good show. All right, now that I've thrown myself under the bus a few times here, let me get Jason Fitz's take on a couple of things. 72% of Americans, you tweeted this out, we were talking about this, polled, said they would not attend sporting events resumed without a vaccine for coronaviruses. What is your opinion on seeing live sports in a venue in this calendar year?
I think it's going to happen in some capacity because I just want to be positive. I think what's happening right now is we're all stuck inside, and the thought of being in that environment is just so difficult. It's interesting, though, to me. I think the harder part of it to figure out is what are our tendencies going to be like. Now, all I keep thinking about is if I'm at one of the first games ever in Vegas for my beloved Raiders and they're playing the Broncos and there's a touchdown, am I really not going to high five the guy that's 6 feet from me if that's where we are? That's the hardest part of trying to figure out what life looks like. But I do think that there's going to be a lot of change. I mean, I laugh every year at Christmas time when you watch Home Alone and you see the family running through the airport, realizing that, he says at one point, it's like, oh, we can't make it. The flight leaves in half an hour. And, you think back to what life was like flying in the 80s and 90s. You walked right up to a gate. Now, if you tell somebody that, they think that you've lost your mind. So I wonder how much we are going to see change in the way live events are presented, at least until we can get some sort of an answer in this.
Well, and you brought up a good point about, high-fiving the guy next to you and even handshaking a guy. We're doing our top 5 most famous people, and my caveat was, in our industry, it's not being a part of a media scrum or being in the locker room. That's not a meeting. It's, hey, shake my hand. I met you. That whole thing of, I always joke. I met Donald Trump one time, and he shook my hand with 2 fingers. And I always said, who shakes a man's hand with 2 fingers? But that's a meeting. Yeah, that's to say, hey, here's my name. I'm shaking your hand. The whole handshake, is that going out the window?
Yeah, I think it's gone. And it maybe at some point it starts to work its way back, but it's so hard to imagine these things if we come out of this and knowing what everybody when we come out of this, but when we come out of this, knowing how everybody's just been sort of locked down and knowing what the economic consequence is to so many families across the country, I just think it's going to make everybody a little bit more hesitant than we've ever been with human contact. And, Golick Jr. and I've joked about it a bunch of times when we've had calls together because God knows, I'm a hugger. I hug people, and not anymore. That's just not even because I'm uncomfortable, but because I don't want to make somebody else uncomfortable. Right. So these waters are really difficult to navigate.
PGA Tour announcing supposedly this week that they're going to resume their season June 11th, according to multiple sources, including Golf Digest. That make you feel any better? I mean, golf is a thing that I don't need the drunk guy going, get in the hole. I mean, I'm okay if they just play with nobody there. So I think the PGA Tour makes sense. But June 11th, could that be the first day we see a live event back?
Yeah, that's a pretty reasonable expectation. And, the hardest part about it is what constitutes a large event, because, that's what every municipality is going to have to decide. I mean, the New York Times put out an article about an hour ago saying that the governor of California has told his high-level officials that he may not be comfortable allowing California to host any concerts or sporting events through the calendar year. So as much as golf wants to come back, I mean, it's not just up to them. It's not just up to any sport. So that's I think those are the waters that still have to be navigated. But yeah, I mean, golf seems like it's absolutely conditioned to give us a fantastic opportunity to get something. To that extent, I was a little surprised tennis didn't continue to look at other ways, because there's definitely distancing in that process. So I'm not sure exactly what everybody's looking for, but I would think golf could come back.
Yeah, and I know baseball. They're having this whole thing where they're having the 10,000 people as part of the antibody test and all that stuff. But there has been some players that don't sound like they're all that thrilled about living in a bubble. One of them being Mike Trout, who came out today and said, a lot of red flags, not sure. I mean, when your highest profile player, who doesn't say a whole heck of a lot, comes out and says he's not all that excited about doing this, baseball is going to be very interesting to see what kind of configuration they try to come back in here. Do you think that Arizona thing or the Grapefruit League, Cactus League thing, does that excite you to say, I'd like to see them try to get one of these off the ground?
Well, I'd love to see it selfishly so we have something we can start deep diving on. But you make a great point about Trout, and it's an important point. There's not a union more powerful than the Major League Baseball Players Association in sports, right? So, the owners can come up with a great plan. But if Mike Trout isn't comfortable with it, if the players aren't comfortable with it, they will affect their own destiny. And Buster Olney has said several times that there are pitchers that refuse to throw with any baseball that they didn't take out of the package to know exactly how it was handled. So, I mean, if we're realistically looking at that, now all of a sudden you think they're going to be comfortable going back and forth with the catcher? I mean, do we know that? So, that's and I want to respect the players right like everybody else. It doesn't matter whether you're a player or whether you work at the local Home Depot. I want to respect everybody's opportunity to sort of to feel safe through all of it.
He's the host of First Take, Your Take on ESPN Radio. Jason Fitz, couple more with him. I want to get the college football season could be played February to May. That, according to ESPN's Chris Fowler, he says it's gaining momentum. Is that something that works for you?
Yeah, there are a couple of reasons. I mean, as we've all looked at the money repeatedly in this stuff. When you look at the TV money, Big Ten, it was about $50 million per school just for the TV contract for their games, and even the ACC, smaller of the Power Fives, still was almost $30 million. So you start to look at the money of college football and what it means. That's a huge part of it. The other part of it, though, is I think we haven't really talked about the fact that the NCAA set a precedent when they came into winter sports and gave an extra year of eligibility. So if they turn around and they decide that, because that precedent is set, if that has to be offered to football teams as well, now you're talking about a massive cost to schools across the country. I'm not sure schools can really absorb that cost. So they're going to do everything they can to not only make the money, but not lose money by having to honor more scholarships possibly.
Now, without blasting your employer, although you can if you'd like, the horse tournament, did it interest you at all?
No, God knows I love my job and I love my company, but I just thought it was interestingly done. I was a little confused about why. I understand that it's getting us a horse contest, but I thought we'd get a little bit more personality. I thought it'd be maybe put together in a little bit different way. To me, it was a little on the fly for what I expected out of it. And the NBA is all about the drama, and it didn't really give us any of that.
Well, the fact that I had more creative horse shots in my backyard than some of the horse shots that I saw on Sunday was also a little bit like head scratching. And I had a better court than Trae Young. I don't know how that happened. His court was the worst.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I mean, Giannis Antetokounmpo has flat out admitted that he doesn't even have a court at his home. And, that's just I'm sort of stunned by the number of NBA players that are like, I don't have a basketball hoop that I can shoot around with. It's like,
Jason
really?
Tatum has said he hasn't picked up a ball. But Jason Tatum has said he has not picked up a basketball since his last game.
Well, and that's the rust we have to think about, and that's why some of the plans to bring the NBA back has also talked about needing a 25-day training camp type period because, man, guys are going to get hurt.
That's the big thing is I don't think you could go right into playoff games after these guys haven't done anything, and who knows when we're going to get back off. All right, Jason Fitz, I want to get a couple more real quick. ESPN is giving fans of all 32 teams a chance to be part of the draft. I saw you in a video about this. How could our listeners be a part of this virtual draft this year?
Yeah, so what they're doing is they're asking listeners to submit, and I've got it out on my Twitter at Jason Fitz. You can find it there. I'll pin that tweet. But they're asking everybody to submit just a video of what the draft means to you, what you love about the draft, your draft moments, your memories. Basically, if you've ever watched the draft, there's all these little vignettes that they do, and they get these opportunities. Well, there's not much of that this year because of the way the draft is being broadcast. So we want to feature the fans more and give the fans the opportunity to talk about their teams, their drafts, and do it, in the most fanatical way possible. So I was head to toe in Raiders gear. I let everybody know where I think the Raiders should go in the draft, what they should do, and what the draft means to me. And that was sort of a little example for everybody. And then you can just submit to the site, and they're going to select the best of them and play them during the draft.
There you go. You can get involved in this year's draft. Follow at Jason Fitz on Twitter to find out more. All right, last one. So I am a very tough grader in Hall of Fame. Like, I don't want anybody in the Hall of Fame. That's it. I just want like 9 people in each Hall of Fame. No. But so I am doing my all-time Sports Bash Sports Hall of Fame. I am only letting 25 people total from sports in my Hall of Fame. First inductee was Michael Jordan. My second inductee is Tiger Woods. Who would you nominate to be in the all-time Sports Hall of Fame?
Oh, I love your criteria on this. I would nominate LeBron. I would nominate Kobe.
Kobe.
And I know. I'm stretching it a little bit in that one. The hardest one, if you're going to go to that level of greatness, the hardest one comes to the NFL, to the quarterback conversation. I mean, like Joe Montana. I mean, I would nominate Montana, but where does I would nominate Peyton? I think Tom Brady. But that's really tough. If you're only allowing a total 25 people in across all sports,
that's it.
Then you're really only going to allow a couple of quarterbacks in max. So now I really have to decide on the 2 best quarterbacks of all time.
That's right. I only want greatness.
God,
I want the greatness of greats in my Hall of Fame. I don't want to have to. If I have to, come up with a story, then that guy's not in. He has to be. I have the story, and I can rip it off without even thinking about it.
So does Barry Sanders make your Hall? Because I just thinking of as a kid watching Barry Sanders, I've never seen anything like it. But did he play long enough to qualify as the great? Yeah, because you're only going to have room for one running back. I mean, you are shaking me to my core here. I don't know what to do. I would definitely nominate LeBron though. That's the one easy one.
Okay.
LeBron's the next easy one.
So Jason Fitz, his official nominee is LeBron James. At 5:45 tonight, I will induct the third member of my Sports Bash All-Time Sports Hall of Fame, and we'll post it up on our website. He's at Jason Fitz. He'll be back next week. We keep having fun. We appreciate his time as always. Thanks, pal.
Hey, y'all have a great week. Stay safe.
You do the same. Jason Fitz, like all guests, appeared via the Boardwalk Honda Hotline.